It's time to dive into a deck that is a mechanical masterclass, a deck that would feel right at home in a casino, a deck that is well and truly America. That's right, let's get into Bandit Keith's Duelist Kingdom deck. Most fans remember Keith as just another cocky American duelist who got owned by Joey Wheeler, but his machine-based arsenal had more going for it than you think. While everyone was focused on Yugi's Dark Magician and Kaiba's Blue Eyes White Dragon, Keith was quietly running one of the most cohesive and strategically sound decks in Duelist Kingdom. So, forget the illegal moves and sleight of hand. Today we're breaking down 51 facts about Bandit Keith's legendary Duelist Kingdom deck. When you dive into the Japanese names of the cards, you often find their names are completely different from what we know and love them as, and I always have a lot of fun looking into these differences. In the case of Ancient Tool, its Japanese name when translated is Ironheart. Ancient Tool has a counterpart called Patrol Robo. For those of you unsure on the term counterpart, a card is called a counterpart of another card if it has a deliberately similar appearance or effect. This also occurs when a monster's alternate artwork is converted into a different monster, with the only difference being a color scheme switch. Now, sticking on the theme of similarities, did you know that Ancient Tool shares the same attack, defense, attribute, and level with another normal monster named Maborel? Ancient Tool came out in the OCG in 2000 in the Volume 7 set as a common card, but wouldn't release in the TCG for another 13 years, when it was again printed as a common card in Legendary Collection 4 Joey's World Mega Pack. Gatekeeper has a counterpart called Royal Guard. Now, I don't know if this is just me, but when I see some of these counterparts, I can't help but think that a bunch of these look like shiny forms of the original, just like from the Pokemon series. Sadly, Gatekeeper never actually saw any playtime during the anime.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
In episode 32, we can see that Bandit Keith has this card in his hand during his duel against Joey Wheeler. Gatekeeper also comes up in Keith's flashback where he spills his cards after he passes out at the bar. The card can be seen among the drop cards. Gatekeeper first came out in the TCG in 2006's Tournament Pack 8 as a common card. These packs were only released to tournament locations. 13 years later, it was released again as a common card in 2019's Speed Duel Scars of Battle set. Just like Gatekeeper, Giganto didn't see any playtime during the anime.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And was only ever seen in Keith's flashback among the cards he dropped when he passed out at the bar. Now, if we look into Giganto's Japanese name, we can see that it doesn't alter from the name we got, but did you know that this monster also went by the name Spike Clubber, which I guess makes sense looking at its design. Giganto was another of Keith's monsters that came out in the OCG in 2000's Volume 7 set that would remain as an anime-only card for 13 years for us in the West until its release in 2013's Legendary Collection 4 Joey's World Mega Pack. This Legendary Collection set was a godsend for the anime fans and character deck builders, as they finally printed a lot of these classic cards used by the characters that we had long been missing. Okay, if you're a bit squeamish when it comes to bugs and creepy crawlies, you might want to look away for this one. Despite Launcher Spider being named a spider, as seen in the anime and several 3D games like Yu-Gi-Oh! The False-Bound Kingdom, it only actually has 6 legs, whereas real spiders have 8 legs. Spiders fall under the category of arachnids, which have 8 legs. While some spiderlings can hatch with 6 legs, they do develop 2 more as they grow. Launcher Spider has 2 card artworks. The first OCG and TCG artwork for this card are from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist manga when the monster is summoned during Chapter 61. This card's second OCG and TCG artwork comes from Chapter 62 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist manga when Keith declares an attack on Joey's Garuzes. However, its position is flipped horizontally. Again, we're looking at the Japanese name of the cards, but this time something is a little mysterious. Launcher Spider's name is exactly the same, however, its Japanese name starts with TM1. But what does TM1 mean? What does it stand for? Now, in the case of the TM1 Launcher Spider, TM most likely refers for technical machine. This term is used in the Pokemon universe to describe items that teach Pokemon new moves. And while the TM1 Launcher Spider is obviously not a Pokemon item, its name implies that it is a tool or device that, like a technical machine, can be used to teach or deploy something. In this instance, a spider-like projectile. Now, the TM1 Launcher Spider could be inspired by the Pokemon notion of TMs, as the original Pokemon Red and Green games were released in Japan in February of 1996, which was before Launcher Spider, but there is no concrete evidence of this, only speculation. Interestingly, Launcher Spider has a counterpart called BM4 Blast Spider. BM likely stands for bomb machine, and the card's effect, which involves destroying and dealing damage, is consistent with this interpretation, referencing a destructive nature associated with a bomb-like machine. So, is TM1 Launcher Spider a nod to the TMs in Pokemon, or is it just a coincidence? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, it's not uncommon to hear that cards come out in the OCG long before we eventually get them in the TCG, but what about toys? That's right, Mattel released Yu-Gi-Oh! Minifigure sets in 2002. In Series 3 of the line, which was also released in 2002, was Pendulum Machine, which wouldn't be printed in the TCG for another 9 years in 2011's Gold Series 4 Pyramids Edition set. For me, what's both super nostalgic and super cool is the monster attack names in the series. Pendulum Machine's attack name in the dub is Slashing Blade, while in the original, it's Scythe Corporal Punishment. The original always sounds a little darker and edgier, doesn't it? Speaking of darker and edgier, Pendulum Machine's Japanese name is Furi Koyaiba no Gomon Kikai, which, when translated, means Pendulum Blade Torture Machine. If we look at them side by side, we can see that Sword Slasher resembles that of the Space Marines from Warhammer 40,000. Sword Slasher has been around since the year 2000, and the Space Marines were first introduced in Warhammer in 1987. So, Sword Slasher could very well be a nod to that franchise. Sword Slasher's Japanese name is Kira Mashin, which when translated reads as Killer Machine. But did you know that this monster is also known as Saber Slasher? We briefly mentioned it earlier, but Sword Slasher came out in the OCG in 2000's Volume 7 set, but remained an anime-only card for us in the West until 2013's Legendary Collection 4 Joey's World Mega Pack. I gotta say, God bless that set, man. How many awesome character cards would we be missing without these sets? According to Slot Machine's flavor text and level, the effect, plus the name and artwork of 7 completed, represents this card's slots landing on a positive outcome. The two cards go hand in hand with another due to its use in the anime and manga, so it comes as no surprise that they are so closely linked like this. When Slot Machine was released in the OCG and TCG, it was drawn with a completely different artwork than the one it has in the manga. However, they didn't stray far from the manga, as its OCG and TCG artwork comes from Chapter 63 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist manga, from the panel where Keith summons the monster against Joey. Slot Machine can be seen in the card artwork of Heavy Metal Raiders. However, it is not alone, and the company it's sharing are all monsters from Keith's deck. There's Pendulum Machine, Blasphere, Launcher Spider, Space Megatron, Slot Machine equipped with 3/7 completed, and Metal Zoa. They all appear in this card's artwork, and it's awesome. Zoa is one of few cards out there whose flavor text directly references another card. Its flavor text reads, "A monster whose full potential can be achieved when outfitted with Metal Morph." Its full potential is its metal counterpart Metal Zoa, who we will be seeing later in the video, but Zoa also has an effect monster retrain called Zoa the Fiendish Beast. Now, for those unfamiliar with the term retrain, card evolutions, also known as retrained monsters, are monsters that have been reprinted with a new effect and somewhat changed name, but retain the same base attack and defense as well as level and appearance. Did you know that Zoa has the highest attack and level of all Fiend-type normal monsters? Zoa appears in the card artwork of the anime-only trap card Immortal Class, alongside Return Zombie and Lizard Soldier. In terms of its own artwork, like a lot of monsters, its OCG and TCG artwork was different from the one it had in the manga. However, its OCG and TCG artwork was taken from the manga, and in Zoa's case, it came from Chapter 61 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist manga when it was summoned by Keith against Joey. Garnatia Elephantis wasn't a part of Keith's Duelist Kingdom machine deck, but I'm going to include it in the video anyway. Now, it wasn't involved in the show for long, but it did see one of those classic rule-bending moments that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is infamous for. In episode 16, Kaiba speaks to Yugi about the Intercontinental Tournament in New York, and we see this card in a flashback scene. Bandit Keith used this card during his duel against Pegasus, who eventually swapped places with a boy named Sam. Keith summoned this card in attack position, but his opponent normal summoned Flying Elephant, reducing Keith's life points to 0. It's unclear how it happened because Flying Elephant was 550 points weaker than this card, but the manga explains that Flying Elephant can negate the seismic assault of Garnatia Elephantis, which of course isn't a genuine rule. This rule, like others in the Duelist Kingdom arc, is based on elemental correlations. In this case, wind beats earth due to its ability to counter the seismic attack. Did you know that Garnatia Elephantis was the first OCG card whose initial release was as a V-Jump promotional card? It came out in 2000 in July's edition of the V-Jump magazine as an ultra-rare card. Garnatia Elephantis' name came from the name of the Hindu god Ganesha, who is a widely revered Hindu deity known as the remover of obstacles and the god of beginnings, wisdom, and good fortune. He is typically depicted with an elephant head and a human body, often with multiple arms. The original Japanese artwork for Barrel Dragon, as well as the card's effect, references the game Russian Roulette. And the game of Russian Roulette actually plays a huge part in Keith's story through his time in the series. Firstly, after Keith was humiliated by Pegasus, he lost everything and spun into a spiral of depression where he would drink, gamble, and play games of Russian Roulette. But it actually gets way darker than this. In the manga, Keith's fate comes at the hands of Pegasus and this game. After he lost to Joey, Keith threatened Pegasus with a knife and demanded the prize money that he thought was rightfully his. Pegasus didn't take too kindly to this threat and inflicted a penalty game on Keith, turning Keith's own hand into a gun and forced the former Intercontinental Champion to play a game of Russian Roulette against himself, which resulted in Keith's death. Pretty dark, right? Duelist Kingdom was actually full of dark moments like this, and if you're interested in finding out all about that, tell me! Make sure to check out this video here after this one, where I dive into how much darker the original Duelist Kingdom arc was. Tell me! Sticking with guns for a moment, the barrels and cylinders of Barrel Dragon resemble the Colt Single Action Army, a popular handgun during the Wild West era. Of course, the guns in the Japanese artwork have been altered in the international artworks of this card to appear less realistic. The background was also altered. Now, not only did the card artwork receive a change in the West, but also its appearance when it was summoned in the anime. The last change to remove any association with guns came with the monster's name. Barrel Dragon's Japanese name when translated is Revolver Dragon. Now, despite the changes, Barrel Dragon's OCG and TCG artwork comes straight from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist manga, from the panel where Barrel Dragon's attack and defense were decreased by the effect of Time Wizard during Chapter 63. Also, on the topic of artwork, Barrel Dragon can be seen in the card artwork of the trap card, Proton Blast. Did you know that in the anime, Blasphere has 2,900 attack, which makes it the strongest level 4 monster in the game? Well, in the anime anyway. Blasphere appears in the card artwork of Heavy Metal Raiders, along with a bunch of Keith's other monsters that we mentioned earlier. But it also features in another card's artwork that we had also mentioned earlier. Several copies of this monster also appear in the card artwork of BM4 Blast Spider, TM1 Launcher Spider's counterpart. Blasphere's Japanese name is Sufia Bomu Kyutai Jigen Bakudan, which when translated reads as Sphere Bomb, Spherical Time Bomb. As we mentioned earlier, Metal Zoa is the metal counterpart of Zoa, but Metal Zoa also has a retrain called Metal Zoa X. There are multiple ways to summon monsters to the field in Yu-Gi-Oh! Even in Duelist Kingdom, you still had special summons, fusion summons, and ritual summons, but Metal Zoa was one of few monsters that had a summoning procedure to bring it to the field. Metal Zoa can't be normal summoned or set, it first has to be special summoned by tributing Zoa equipped with Metal Morph. In the anime, however, Keith used Magic Metal Force to transform Zoa into Metal Zoa. Metal Zoa came out in the TCG in 2011 as a super rare card in the World Championship 2011 card pack. This was a promotional booster pack that was made available at the World Championship 2011 to participants. Each pack had 2 foil cards in there and the full set contained 20 super rare cards. Metal Zoa came out as a common card 2 years later in 2013's Legendary Collection 4 Joey's Wild Mega Pack. In 7 Completed's card artwork, the 3 cards contain 2 that say attack and 1 that says defense, which is exactly how Bandit Keith used his 3 copies of the card to power up his slot machine in his duel against Joey. In the dubbed version of the anime, the cards in the artwork of 7 Completed take on their manga appearance with the same Japanese text and white colour scheme. They also still have the coloured artwork. As for the TCG artworks of 7 Completed, although the official word for magic cards was changed to spell cards, the cards depicted on this card were still referred to as magic cards. Later editions of this card removed all text from the cards in the image. Did you know that 7 Completed is the only equip spell where the player can choose whether to give the equipped monster more attack or more defense? Bandit Keith's Pillager card is a more powerful version of the cards Exchange and Amazonas Chainmaster. Exchange makes both players reveal their hand and add 1 card from each other's hand to their own. Amazonas Chainmaster allows you to pay 1,500 life points when it is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, to look at your opponent's hand and add 1 monster from their hand to yours. But then there's Pillager. It allows you to look at your opponent's hand and steal 1 card without any cost or condition needed to be met. In the 4Kids version of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pillager's card artwork was changed from the original anime version to look more like its manga artwork. Pillager's Japanese name is Bandetto Tozoku, which when translated reads as Bandit Thief. The card's Greek name when translated is the Plunderer. Stop Defense has a counterpart called Block Attack. As well as that, it also has an anime-only retrained version called Negate Defense. When Stop Defense was released in the OCG in 1999's Volume 3 set, its artwork was redrawn compared to its original artwork in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. Did you know that in some episodes of the anime, Stop Defense was treated as a trap card, while in other episodes of the same arc, it was treated as a spell card? For example, in episode 9, Ghost Kyber plays this card as the trap card Defense Paralysis against Yugi when he switches his Dark Magician to defense mode. Whereas in episode 31, Bandit Keith plays this as the spell card Stop Defense to switch Joey's Axe Raider into attack position. Magic Metal Force is an anime-only card whose card artwork is the same as Metal Morph. In truth, these 2 cards are pretty much the same. Magic Metal Force's effect is when your opponent attacks, metallize one monster on the field, and if it was a magic attack, reflect it. Then, this card becomes an equip card, and attack and defense are raised by 400 points. Whereas Metal Morph's effect is target one face-up monster on the field, equip this card to that target. It gains 300 attack and defense, and if it attacks, it gains attack equal to half the attack of the attack target during damage calculation only. Sticking with Metal Morph for a second, the card has two OCG and TCG card artworks that feature the metal with slightly different details, positions, and backgrounds. The second card artwork of Metal Morph that came out in the premium pack set features two pairs of eyes instead of one, as well as different claws and form from the original artwork. The card was also misprinted as a continuous trap card. Magic Metal Force's Japanese name is Maho Hansha Soku Metaru Fosu, which when translated reads as Magic Reflection Armor Metal Force. In the original OCG print that came out as a promotional card for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 3 Tri-Holy God Advent Game Guide 2 in 2000, its effect was not considered a special summon, but rather the return of a monster to the field, similar to the returning of a monster banished by Interdimensional Matter Transporter. Later OCG prints modified the card to special summon the monster. When this card was printed in the OCG and TCG, it was drawn from an alternate angle from the manga artwork. Also, Time Machine's card artwork in Yu-Gi-Oh! R has a darker backdrop compared to the manga artwork for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist. In terms of its OCG and TCG artwork, it is taken from chapter 63 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist manga, from the panel where we see the Time Machine manifest itself. The Time Machine appears in the card artwork of Red Eye's Retro Dragon, reflecting that monster's first effect, as this card was used in both the manga and anime to revive Red Eye's Black Metal Dragon. Beneath the cheating and cocky attitude, Bandit Keith was one of the best duelists in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! And the machine deck he used during the Duelist Kingdom tournament was one of the strongest in the game. But there was another duelist who made it to the semi-finals, who ran a deck that had a cohesive archetype, and she played every game in the tournament with a fiery confidence. That duelist was none other than My Valentine. Now, you can check that deck out here, where I dive into 36 facts about My Valentine's Duelist Kingdom deck. I'll see you over there. Till then, take care. Peace, peace!